Hi, everyone. Welcome to our new episode of the Direct Perspective. I am joined here today with Curt Swindoll of the Current Strategies. So he is the president at Current Strategies. And Curt and I have had a couple conversations, and I couldn't be more excited to have him joining me today. Curt, thanks for hopping on with me.
Thanks, Marie. Great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about what you do at Current Strategies.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, we help business leaders implement the entrepreneurial operating system. A lot of people may have heard of it as EOS, but that's kind of what it stands for. And we really work with senior leadership teams in three areas: vision, creating clarity around where we're going and how we're going to get there; traction, executing on every part of that vision with discipline and accountability; and then creating healthy relationships. So we're doing work we love with people we love. And a big part of that is about having open and honest communication and interaction with our colleagues.
I love that. And as a fellow entrepreneur, I know exactly what you mean when you say that relationships and communication are so important. And I think that's the case in every business, but especially in kind of the small businesses and entrepreneur space. So one of the things that we're big on is teamwork. So kind of speaking about communication and building teams and building businesses, teamwork is huge for us at Boost. I had someone tell me that you can go fast if you go alone, but you can go farther if you go together. So are there critical team members that you suggest businesses always consider having on board, or what have you seen when it comes to building teams?
Yeah, so several things that we could talk about there. First, obviously, we've got to involve everyone who's involved and impacted by the project. So that's kind of a standard thing that we understand is important to the process. I think second is that as we measure our progress on projects that we're working on, we're not waiting until the deadline to evaluate how it's going. And so we have a process that we implement or help our clients implement, where every week there's a review of where do we stand on this and this and this, as we look at the critical priorities of the business, and everyone has a chance to respond. And I think there's a really simple way to kind of picture that. If you think of a box, and the left side of the box is where we are now, and the right side of the box is where we're going, and you drew a line, you would typically see a hockey stick, right, in terms of the activity related to a project. So what we really need to do is to create a lot of mini hockey sticks along the way. If you think more of like an EKG, that line is popping up over and over again, right? And we think about that in terms of weekly reviews, and that's what it encourages people to do in terms of following up and pursuing and executing on the project earlier.
I love that. Yeah. It's funny. That visual sticks with me coming from a healthcare background. I'm
there you go,
yes,
right?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And I think it plays right into the idea of KPIs, or key performance indicators.
Yeah.
And we like those. We think it helps with those conversations. Are there any KPIs that you automatically recommend out the gate, or is it custom for every single business?
Well, I certainly think it's unique to each business, but I do think there's a quality of the KPI that would be worth thinking about. We encourage businesses to adopt a scorecard of 5 to 15 metrics. Fewer is better, less is more, fewer is better. How many times do we have to say it, right? I'd rather have you measuring and monitoring 5 or 6 measurements every week than 15 once a month, And so, but here's the quality I think associated with those 5 to 15. That is, as many of them as possible should be leading indicators, which typically means we're measuring activity, not results, right? So our typical process is we look at a result, and for instance, we look at a financial result that we're looking for once a quarter. And the question is, if that financial result is not where we wanted it to be, what kinds of activities would have led to a better financial result in the end? Let's measure those activities on a weekly basis, preferably activities that has a starting account over again every week, right?
You're absolutely right. And I think so it's that idea too of less is more. Consistency is important. We always say, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. And if you don't share, like, I think too, people forget looking at those KPIs, it keeps your team motivated. It keeps your team excited about where you're going. So,
Yep.
Oh,
It
go ahead.
does. In fact, I would add, we see a lot of companies that don't want to share financial results and things like that. And guess what? If you don't share it, then people are going to fill in the gaps with their own speculations and all of that. So you might as well, and they're going to probably over speculate where your profit is and where your revenue is. So you're almost better off by just sharing, hey, here's where we're trying to go over this next quarter or over this next year. And being really open and transparent about that and creating a sense of team. If people aren't handling that information well, they're not the right person for the team.
That's true. That's definitely true. And I think it builds trust and camaraderie,
Yeah.
that collaborative aspect of your business. We say collaboration's key, and it's true. So,
it's interesting as we think about this question about who's on the team. I think there's another interesting tool that would be worth sharing with your viewers and your listeners. So lots of people are familiar with the idea of core values, right? A set of abiding characteristics that represent the soul and the heart of an organization, really giving it its identity. The problem is that most organizations are plastering those up on a wall, or maybe including them in a speech, but they're not really doing much else with them. So think about a matrix that looks like this. Think about putting a list of your employees down the left-hand side of a page. So those are your rows, right? And putting your values across the top, those are your columns. And then doing a very simple rating, and that is plus, they do this value most of the time, plus minus, it's 50-50, or minus, they don't really do that value very often. What you're going to find is the people that fit your culture have pluses going across, maybe not 100%, but pretty close to that, right? And the people that don't fit your culture have mostly minuses going across. Our problem is that we'll let people go because they don't fit our company or fit our culture, but we fail to help them understand where the fit was really missing. And I think we call this thing a people analyzer. And the people analyzer is it's just a very quick way. It takes seconds to fill it out, but it gives you language in sitting down with someone and saying, you know what, here are a couple of areas where if you could focus on these things, your fit in our culture would just be that much stronger.
I love that. See, this is why I love our conversations, because there's always a fantastic tip like that. And you're right. I think a lot of folks say culture is this fluff. It's this word they don't know how to actually put hands and arms around. And so that's a fantastic actionable tool that they can use for that.
Very simple to do it. In fact, if they can extend the people analyzer one more piece on that, put 3 more columns on that report and label them GWC. G stands for they get it. They were born with it. They have a DNA for this. They were just made to do the kind of work that they're doing. Want it. They have a desire to do this job, an innate desire. And then C, they have a capacity to do it, which some of that stands for they have time to do it, but a big part of it really stands for they have the education, the experience, the training, the orientation to doing that job well. And so the GWC gets a yes or a no. It's really easy. Do they get it? Do they want it? They have capacity for it. You put those two things next to each other, the values and GWC, and you've got the makings of a great regular performance review kind of process.
I love that. I think it also gives your team that actionable insight into themselves.
It does.
So at our business at Boost, we're big on kind of incubating ideas, incubating businesses, helping projects grow, businesses grow. But I also see it as my responsibility as the president to grow my team, grow leaders and build them up. And I think that's a tool that we could use tomorrow. I mean, quite literally. Today.
It's so easy. It's so easy. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's a lot of what EOS is really taking simple tools, simple processes, simplifying the business. Don't make it complex. Complexity kills. Make it simple. And so we're looking for simple ways to capture valuable information that we can act on. So
spot on. It's interesting, you know, we have our AIM solution, the Analyze, Innovate, Manage. And that's a big piece of our analyze phase is what are you doing today that you don't need to do? You know, where are your goals? Where are your plans? What is it that you have the opportunity for? Let's innovate together. But let's ignore the distractions. I think earlier you mentioned the 5 to 15 KPIs, less is more.
yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the more you add to it, number one, the more you have to keep up with, right? So the more time you're putting into just managing and monitoring,
right.
Better yet, you're giving yourself all these extra distractions. Just
right.
focusing on key metrics and key things gets more done.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's the thing. You got to get more done, not just talk about it. So,
Yep.
So obviously, we're project management. We love project management. Operations and project management tend to go hand in hand. But I think a lot of companies are starting to see how important project managers are to their day-to-day, to their clients' relationships and things like that. How do you see project management appearing in the businesses that you work with?
You know, I see that it's a critical thing, but it's an underdeveloped skill that a lot of leaders have. And so think about a little simple exercise like this, right? Project manage for me what it looks like when you get ready for work in the morning, right? Just a simple little thing like that, right? And people, I've talked to leadership teams about that. Just give me what that project sounds like. And I find them just looking at you like, I'm not really sure where to begin, right? Well, there's probably something about exercise. There's probably something about, you know, getting presentable, right? Maybe something about a meal. You think about 3 major facets of your morning routine, and then you think about the more detailed elements of that. And just, I find that there are a lot of people that don't have the skill of deconstructing a vision or a plan into the executable parts that they need to be successful in completing it. So that's, I know it's a big part of what you guys do. It's a big part of what EOS does. Take a 3-year view, a 1-year view, a quarterly view, and break it down to, so what are our priorities? What are the commitments we're making to each other to follow through on? And then are we following through on those?
That's exactly it. And I think that, you know, a lot of folks struggle with that, where to begin. And we always say, begin with the end in mind.
Yep.
Start with that vision, start with those ultimate goals. Like you said, break it down, make it something that's attainable and that's actually doable. So yeah, I think that's spot on.
But then we have to do something with that, right? How do we measure and manage it along the way? And from a lot of leaders that I talk to, what they say is, we hate meetings, right? Dilbert, like, you know, Scott, who wrote Dilbert, like he made a successful career making fun of how much people hate meetings. So
yes,
it's hysterical. So what we did is we created at EOS, we created a meeting pulse, which is a structure for how you organize your meetings. And today there are tens of thousands of businesses that are following the identical meeting structure, that meeting pulse, every week when they meet as a leadership team. Let me give it to you in some really easy segments. There's a segue in getting started, share a personal and a professional highlight from the last week since we met. That reminds us all we're human beings. We're connected to each other. We care for each other, but it also allows us to jump right into the meeting. And then from there, we have several things that we review. How are we doing on the scorecard? Review that metric by metric, on track or off track. Are we doing on our, what we call rocks, or our priorities, the commitments we've made to each other for each quarter? Are we on track or are we off track on that, right? How are we doing on our to-do list, the things that we committed to each other last week that we would complete? Is it still to do or is it to done, right? And here's the point on all of that. These are 5 minutes. You don't solve any problems in that. You identify problems or issues that you have where we're off track on a metric or we're off track on a particular project, but you don't solve it. You put those on an issues list, and then you solve those issues in the majority of the time that you have left, because you have so condensed the other parts of the meeting. but it really takes some discipline to not getting into commenting on projects, why things are on or off track, immediately trying to solve those problems, which may not be the biggest problems you have. That's why you shouldn't solve them then. You should look at the list of the issues, prioritize them, 1, 2, 3, very quickly, and then move through a process of solving them. And our experience has been that plus a little review at the end. How did we do today on a scale of 1 to 10? Creates an amazing meeting experience that people actually say is one of the highlights of their week.
I love that. And I feel like you just described the agile project management approach. I mean, it is exactly that. It's the stand-ups, it's the keeping things documented in issue logs and prioritizing and just keeping communications and keeping everything flowing and moving at all times. And we use that. We have a little bit of a different spin in our team meetings because we actually bring we call it our fun facts. So just kind of a little random highlight about our team, but
right.
we do fun facts like, share jokes or share the fact that, did you know that St. Louis doesn't actually have a county? It is only a city. So little things like that. For you. Yeah. So, and that's how we keep it fun, but it kind of plays into that idea, Curt, of, starting the meeting with something personal and professional. And that's kind of what we do.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I think that meetings can actually become some of the most valuable time that we have. And if it's not that is really an indication that something is broken in that area. And we're not getting everything that we could get from the time that we're spending together with our colleagues.
That's so true. Yeah. So, okay. And this is usually where I kind of wrap things up, is do you have a daily motto or an activity that keeps you energized?
Well, that's really interesting. If I could maybe respond in just a very personal level about this, and this may not work for a lot of people or some people, but my faith is like really important to me. And I know these are very personal things and all of that. And so I won't talk about what faith that is or anything like that. I'll just simply say that I think the more I am integrating my faith with my professional life, the more my life is an integrated life. And I'm not splitting the two and being one person during the week and somebody else on the weekend or somebody in the evening that's different than somebody during the day, And so I don't know that I have a motto around that as much as I really am just trying to live a life where I am trying to integrate my spiritual practices with my best business practices so that I feel like I'm one person showing up every day with colleagues and not, kind of two different people. So if that's encouraging to some, I would hope that it would.
I think it will be. And in fact, I think a lot of us in the last year, we've probably all had an internal moment like that of, our lives are fully integrated nowadays. We don't have a choice to have a work life and a home life. It's all one. So I think that's great advice to give. So I do want to just kind of quick mention. So one of the things, Curt, that you and I talked about when we first connected was the operational assessment that you guys have. So do you want to kind of share a little bit about that? Because I do want to add that to the link in the comments from this video when it's posted.
I'd love to. And the great thing about this is that it's absolutely free. So it doesn't cost a thing. And the next great thing about it, it only takes about 10 minutes to do it, So it gives you a lot more information than the time and the expense that you're investing and putting into it in the first place. So where to find it is if you went to currentstrategies.com and you click on the leadership link at the top, it's a little brief menu that we have there. And you just scroll down that page. We've titled that page Leadership Mastery. And who doesn't want to master the art and science of leadership? And so we talk a little bit about what EOS is in that. We talk about the 6 areas that EOS addresses by way of moving towards leadership mastery. And then about 3/4 of the way down the page, there's something that we call Map Your Vital Signs. And it's this little 20-question assessment, this checkup that allows you to say on a scale of 1 to 5, how often do we do these kinds of things that it's listing in the assessment? And it provides a wonderful little full color report that says how strong on a scale of 0 to 100 are we doing in vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction. It'll even give you some ideas of how to strengthen yourself in those areas. And ultimately, for companies that are interested, we'd love to talk to you about what it would look like to implement EOS in your organization and to further strengthen those 6 areas. So yeah, that's something people can do.
Awesome. And I've actually taken that assessment before, and it truly is only 10 minutes, maybe less, depending on the size of what you do and what your company is today. And it's a fantastic tool. So yes, definitely recommend if you're watching this, please take a look at that and use it for your own success. And then reach out to Curt. Curt does some fantastic work and has a plethora of experience. So use him to your advantage as well. So
thanks, Marie.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Curt. I'm glad that you have joined me today. I always love our conversations and excited to share all of this with our audiences.
It's a pleasure. I hope this is helpful to folks. Let's get away from creating complex business environments where we're usually trying to impress somebody, and let's really simplify our business, which is actually a much harder process. But it makes it a lot easier for our customers and our employees to understand what it is that we do at the end of the day and how we create value in this world. So hopefully something here that we've shared will help people do that.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you.